MSP Initiative, MSP Talk. One more day, and we're officially done July for 2026. So the summer is two-thirds over if you're on this side of the world. So hopefully you're getting your vacation time in. But for everyone else, we're still working. All right. MSPinitiative.com. This is where this session is recorded, as well as YouTube and the podcatcher and any format that we hopefully make it convenient for you. Make sure to like, download, subscribe, forward, all that good stuff. This will be posted there under sessions in case you are looking for it. So, some housekeeping that we'd like to get done at the beginning of this, and then we'll get into the topics of the day. Again, thank you if you came out to the MSP and IT community block parties that we've done on the front end of the year. Special thanks go out to Zero Trust World and the team at Threat Locker, Enable and their Empower event, Kaseya, Connect Global and Connect Europe, Roost with the Flow conference. It's been a busy front end of the year, and we love seeing all of you guys in person. Not going to lie. I love the virtual stuff. Two bald guys here, but sometimes, a beer and a conversation is worth all of it. So thank you if you're able to make it out to that. We are pivoting into the second half of the year agenda for MSP Initiative, which if you were hanging out with us last year, we launched the Channel Sports Tour. And yes, it is NFL season. All NFL teams are now officially in training camp. I know it's early this year because we're still in July, but it is true. Every single one of them have reported. So we are doing the Channel Sports Tour. I'm going to rattle these off, but they'll be listed on MSPinitiative.com. Here are the MSP Channel events that we're doing at NFL games around the world this upcoming season. We're going to Australia. First NFL game in Australia, Rams 49ers in Melbourne. Then we're going Cowboys Giants in New Jersey, Steelers Patriots in New England, Vikings Buccaneers in Tampa, Eagles Bears in Chicago, Cowboys Texans in Houston, Eagles Jags in London. So we're making sure we're covering all these regions. We got one in London, one in Australia. And then Steelers Bucks again in Florida, Chargers Rams at SoFi Stadium. That's where the Super Bowl is, if you didn't know. And by the way, the Super Bowl is on Valentine's Day this upcoming season. Plan ahead. And lastly, 49ers at Cowboys in Texas. So that is 10 games, 8 domestically here in the U.S., 2, one in London, 1 in Australia internationally. There they all are. I know I rapid fired them, so if you're listening to them, do not stop to take notes. They'll all be online at MSPinitiative.com. This was so good last year. We decided to double down, bring it again this year. So definitely put your name on the wait list. And we have a lot of vendors that were interested in coming back and working with us this year on this project. Nothing beats the NFL. I know that's my opinion, and I'm sure you could argue it, but the NFL is king. They make more than the rest of the sports combined, except for FIFA, which, obviously doesn't run every year, let's be honest. But great job, North America, on FIFA, by the way. I mean, I had 8 matches here in Philadelphia. It was absolutely spotless. I think Philadelphia did a great job on their FIFA games. Anyway, there's all of my banter. You see all of that online. Now we bring back a person that is no stranger to the pod, Jim Jessup from Cyberqp. Jim, how you doing today, buddy?
Good. How you doing, George?
I'm excited. It's like football came back so early this year. I usually think about August for NFL, but July, I'm all in, man.
Well, it looks like you're sporting the green today of the Philadelphia Eagles versus, the Super Bowl championship, because unfortunately it was the Seahawks that won this year.
That's okay. Well, birds flock together, right?
Exactly right. Just watch out for those other birds that we don't like the Falcons or something like that, right?
Yeah, and the Ravens and the Cardinals. There are a lot of
Yeah.
birds out there. At least, no offense to if your team is like, like pirates, like I don't know I don't know what that's all about, or what's exactly a Titan. I'm not exactly sure. But hey, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's from Games of Thrones, somebody with a sword.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. It's been a while, Jim, since we last talked to you. I know like that's like dinosaur times in IT and MSP world because like things are moving pretty quickly. I like to talk a little current events, and then we'll learn a little bit about what's happening over at CyberQP. So I can't help but bring it up literally on every pod. So if you're a constant listener, I'm sorry, but I love to hear everybody's point of view, which hopefully will tell you what's actually going on. So, um, the data center wars, which are underneath of the AI wars, are clearly underway. Um, I'm not a huge stock market guy, but you like to look at the stock market to find out what's going on, like with some of the vendors that we use on a regular, right? And so when I start to see crazy fluctuations, it's like an indicator of what I think could be happening, like as me on the ground buying services from people. So, like for example, Microsoft just came out with their quarterly report. Hey, they're ahead of expectations. Stock's going up. Cool. But you want to know why they're probably ahead of their expectations? Because they just raised all their prices this month, right? Again, for Microsoft 365 for the 100th time, I
Surprise.
feel like. So now all of a sudden money looks good, but you just raised the price on everybody another 20% or whatever. So, okay, cool. All of the data center companies out there and the chip companies and like all of the kind of sub entities that make data centers happen, right? Like NVIDIA and the memory companies and the storage companies and all these guys. Apparently, like the Chinese derivative of these companies have all hit, and now they took a little bit of a hit recently, right? So like there's this supply demand wars, right, happening. But let me fast forward, which is underneath of what I said at the end of the road here, which is the AI companies. Now, I know that there's three main AI companies that we all talk about, just like if we just go back 10 years, there's like three main cloud companies, right? Azure, Amazon, Google, okay? I don't care about Alibaba and those guys. I know internationally they're big, but I'm just talking about here domestically, North America. All right. So the AI companies we all hear about are OpenAI and Anthropic, and we hear about Grok slash X slash SpaceX, all now pretty much
Slash
one
Elon
bubble.
Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever he's up to today.
So I know there's another company called Palantir, but that's not really for public consumption. I feel like they're very, military government focused. So like I don't really put them on the top three mountain. So those three companies, if we just talk about those, one's public, SpaceX, OpenAI and Anthropic, creator of Claude, will be public before the end of this year. So that means all the chips are in now, right? Everybody's now going to be publicly traded. And let me like land this plane. If you're publicly traded, you're going to have to show earnings. If you're going to show earnings, you're going to have to start showing that you're making money. And if you're going to start showing that you're making money, likely your price, like Microsoft, is going up because they got to show a profit. What do you think about all that?
Well, it's a lot to digest. There's obviously a lot going on and it's changing very rapidly. But similar to they got to show that they're making money, they also have to show if they're losing money, right? Which is a big thing. I mean, the way that I look at it is that there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of what the finance guys call dry powder, in the market, right? Where they're trying to pump all these companies full of all the money they got on the sidelines that they were holding on to for a number of years. And obviously it's setting those valuations super high. But yeah, I mean, there's already a problem with the token consumption, right? With a lot of these frontier models, and that, is already making prices go up for, extended usage. And obviously that's just going to continue to go up if they have to start making a profit because if you've seen any of the financials from OpenAI, they're losing billions of dollars every month, every quarter. So, somebody's funding that, and sooner or later, somebody's going to want to have a return on their investment, right? So I can't see that, even though some pricing is a bit reasonable now, that that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. However, that does bring me to another point, which is that there is a bit of a movement now for companies to, become a little bit more niche and context aware of what they're doing so that they can optimize the number of tokens that they're using. Because right now, the frontier models are just so general use, they can do everything, they can support billions of parameters. But what does that mean? I need more GPUs, I need more tokens, and it's going to cost more money, right?
Yeah, it's real interesting that bringing all this down to like the sub industry or the MSP sandbox that we live in. Um, I've seen a lot of false starts, Jim. I've seen a lot of people go crazy, and build stuff with all these AI tools, and then it didn't work, and they're on their second and third try, right? And like they just keep swiping the credit card. It's seamlessly endless, right? I hope until the credit card limit gets hit. But I've also seen mixed results with stuff that was working in the beginning and then stopped working, and then like they got to spend more time trying to get it back to working, and then in the middle of all of this is like the customer who's just trying to like keep doing what they're expecting, right? Like, hey, I got my own
Yeah.
job to do, I just need you to do your part. And so everybody seems to, is like rebuilding the car as we're driving it almost. And
Oh, 100%.
some people are crashing. Some people are in traffic. Some people say that they're on the easy pass lane with nothing in front of them, but I'm not hearing a lot of that. What are you hearing?
Well, what I'm seeing a lot of is, a lot of companies did these mass layoffs, right? Because I thought, AI is going to take over everybody's job. It's going to, replace 30% of the workforce, et cetera, right? But what's been happening, especially if you think about engineers, because a lot of engineers at whatever company have been laid off over the last year and a half or so. And coincidentally, a lot of those engineers are getting their jobs back or are getting hired at other companies because the reality of it, and we've experienced a bit of this as well too, is that when you're using tools like Claude Code, they're great at helping you be more efficient, right? But they make mistakes, and Claude Code needs to be reviewed by somebody who knows what they're doing. The
Hmm.
other thing is that a lot of, let's say junior engineers were then using Claude Code to pretend that they were a senior engineer, right? Because, hey, I've got this tool that can do everything. I'm just gonna, make me look like a senior engineer, but then they can't even check the work that they're doing. So then guess what happens? Garbage in, garbage out, right? So what companies are realizing is that, hey, AI is great, it's a great tool, but it's not there yet to just replace humans. It needs not only guardrails, but it needs people to verify its work, right? So you can't just, suddenly fire half your workforce, right?
Hmm. That's very intriguing because I have not been to a channel event in recent memory. Let's just, how about we just say January for, like last 7 months, right? Where I haven't heard, like, actually, let me rephrase. Every event I've been to since January, MSP event, all I've heard consistently at every one of these events is the end of the front line, L1, you're not going to need it. It's all going to be automated. Chat this, bot that, voice this. No need to talk to human intervention at all. And you can either displace those people, move them into a different position, make them TTU, two or three guys or girls. Um, I got to be honest. Even though that's been the consistent message, Jim, I ain't seeing that. I ain't seeing that reality. I'm hearing the opposite. What are you hearing?
Well, there's definitely a lot of solutions out there that are trying to make that a reality to get rid of the people, but I don't know what your experience is dealing with other companies where, let's just pick, the telecommunications company, your cell phone provider, AT&T or whoever, right? You want to upgrade your phone or change your plan, and you're like, you call them up and you're like, oh shit, I'm just talking to AI here. Or, oh, I got to go to the chat bot. Oh, the chat bot doesn't have the script to handle the situation that I'm dealing with. Okay, well, now it took me, I don't know, 4 hours to deal with my problem. I get it done. Then they still have to have somebody call me back and verify my identity and make sure that the order that I put through is actually valid, right? So it's like a, two steps forward, one steps back kind of a scenario. But, we obviously have to innovate, right? I mean, there's definitely the need to do that and to be better. There's a massive acceleration of that. And so I think, the adoption and the acceleration kind of has to meet in the middle, right? And compromise on something that works ultimately, right? Like you just can't simply wipe complete departments out entirely and just expect the robots to run the world. I think it's a vision, but it hasn't yet really come to reality yet.
Okay. All right. I'm with you, and I agree with you, by the way. Um, For forever, I feel like I was talking on these podcasts about failed AI implementations, right? And I always go to the fast food guys because everybody has done the fast food thing at some point, right? And so, people are on their, like McDonald's was one of the very first ones to roll out the AI, to a group of like 90 or 100 stores. It did not go well. They ripped it out, and now they're coming back again with something called Archie, and they're trying for 2.0, right? They're going to give it another try. And I'm like, hey, why? Like, you guys try and reinvent this thing over and over again, but hasn't the drive-through experience been perfected? Like Chick-fil-A has it down. They got it to the most efficient I've ever had in my experience, and I've ordered a lot of fast food in my day. So like, why aren't we working backwards from the best picture rather than you trying to Xerox something else? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean it's we're all trying to make money, right? So we're all trying to come up with solutions that allows us to increase our profits, make more money. But sometimes we move too fast and we lose sight of what's really important, right? Because ultimately we're all trying to deliver, great solutions and experiences for our customers, as opposed to going, well, I don't really care what your experience is. This is what you're going to get now because I'm going to make a couple more dollars, right?
Yeah, I guess that sentence really matters on how big you are, I guess, right? Like, we talked about Microsoft already in this call. I don't, if you're at work at Microsoft, this isn't personal, right? I'm not sure the company cares as a whole about what my experience is as the guy buying your services. Like, you're the 800
Mhm.
pound gorilla in the room. It is what it is, and we just got a deal. That
Yeah.
doesn't work for everybody. Like, there's only so many of you, and there's a lot more of everybody else that has to like work hard to keep their customer happy.
Yeah, I think a lot of the way to look at it is if you have a company where people have no choice but to use your service or there's only one option, then you can afford to be a little bit, standoffish like that, right? But for the rest of us who rely on, happy customers, and there are other choices, right? Unfortunately, that tactic doesn't really work very well.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, back to MSP land, right? The landscape is never static. It's always moving. Um, I want to go into our specific marketplace, right? There's still the big boys that we all know who they are. They're still all there. There's the guys out there that are like, yeah, I'm gonna just build my own solution and leave the big boys. I don't know how well that's going. There's the, hey, you know, I want to be profitable as the MSP now. Do I need all of the same things that I did 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago today? Um, so a lot of that conversation is always happening. And in my experience, Jim, at least I hope hopefully it's more, but at least twice a year, somebody looks at the credit card bill or the bank statement at the IT services company or managed IT services company and says, what are we paying for and what are we actually using? Like, at some point, that
Right.
math has to be calculated. And so it just seems like today it may be a little bit more rapid because there's this, adjacent question of, hey, do I still need this tool or can I build the AI version of it and not, and like leave my vendor? Now, I follow the boards like I'm sure everybody else does, if nothing other than for just awareness, right? The Reddits, Discords, the Slacks, the LinkedIn, the Facebooks, whatever. Um, I'm seeing some people who are should never be thinking about building their way out of their own tool. Like, that was never the intention. Like, they did it and it was a recreational thing that probably turned into something that it shouldn't have, in my opinion. There's the guys in the middle who are like, hey, I'm going to build my own platform. I'm a big boy. I can afford to do it, but uh, plane hasn't really landed yet. And then there's everyone else who's like, hey, I don't want to be on the front end of this wave. I just want to negotiate the best deal possible so that I can look at my bank statement at the end of the month and show that I'm profitable. So, with all of that being said, think back 2025 to 2026, right? A year ago. Has the picture, the blueprint from the MSP's view, changed that much or not at all?
Well, that's definitely a loaded question. I mean, it's definitely changed quite a bit. I would say that the biggest thing is the geopolitical issues that we have going on affecting the economy and people's pocketbooks and their customers perhaps leaving, which in any type of event like that, whether it was the financial crisis of 2008 or, insert whatever other thing, everybody then is triggered to then look at their own balance sheet and go, hey, I'm not making as much money. I need to go look at my expenses and make sure that I'm not paying or overpaying for too many tools, right? Now, inevitably, there is a movement of consolidation, not only with vendors, but also with tools, right? And a lot of MSPs are looking for, vendor consolidation. They don't want to deal with as many vendors. They don't want to deal with as many tools. Maybe they want to build their own tools, right? And you can definitely argue for and against that. But I mean, so definitely the biggest thing is the vendor consolidation, and it's really driven by the economy, really, right? I mean, yes, there's AI, but economic conditions, which will always present themselves, whether 30 years ago or today, will always drive people to look at what their expenses are and look at ways to be more efficient, right? When everything's going good, right? Nobody's looking at their credit card statement, everybody's happy, everybody's making money. Suddenly you start losing customers, companies go out of business, then you start looking a little hard at what you're paying, right? So definitely a lot of vendor consolidation. In terms of the building your own tools, not building your own tools, I mean, it's the same as before, but there's just different capabilities, right? Like before, you could write your own script, you could leverage APIs to build your own tools, but now you have AI that can do that, right? But it still comes back to the same thing. What is your focus? Is your focus on running your business and being an MSP and making, obviously satisfying your customers? Or is it, building your own tools and making sure that it works and maintaining it and making sure that you're addressing all their security vulnerabilities, all that kind of stuff? And to be honest, as a vendor, that's the hardest thing. It's the pen testing, the secure coding, the making sure that you're managing your vulnerabilities, your compliance, etc. All the things that when you're dealing with larger customers are table stakes, right? If you're a small MSP dealing with small businesses where maybe they don't care about those things, maybe not a big deal. And if you're not growing a lot, and that's an opportunity for you to make more money by building your own tool, I mean, have at it, right? But as you become a more mature company, you start needing to get all these different things, and you're like, hey, do you have the bandwidth to do that versus just delegating that to the vendor, right?
Yeah, like basically you're not a software company. So what does good look like when you basically become your own software company?
Yeah.
That's
I
for
mean,
sure.
it's a different story if you want to go build your own thing and then become a vendor, right? That's a totally different ball game, right?
100%. And some of the best vendors in the sandbox came that way, right? They were an MSP. They realized there was a gap. They couldn't find a solution that really fit it. And so they're like, let's build something. And then ultimately they separated that into whatever it is, right? And so that's great. I don't know if that's what's happening right now. I think they're kind of like using things internally in a lot of cases, but we'll let the timeline kind of expand a little bit and see where
Yeah.
everything lands. So tell us, Jim, what's happening at Cyberqp? It's been about a year since we talked to you last. I know you guys have been working on something in the back lab somewhere. So what's been baking?
We've been working for quite a while behind the scenes since last summer on launching a new platform that is coincidentally AI native, but also it is a new vision of all the tools that we have in privileged access management delivered in a new package that we are launching next month. And it's called Panthera, which is Spanish for panther.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So what is I mean, AI native, right? I feel like that's like everything now. It's like, but 5 years ago, 3 years ago, it was like cyber, right? Like everybody was a security company. Now everybody's
Right. Now everybody's an
AI.
internet company, right?
So what are like the big things people would expect to get from this new Panther edition versus what you guys have been running for a while?
Yeah, good question. So one of the things that we did deliberately here is that rather than us just, making an MCP server that can access our tools that you could just use with the frontier models, we took a different approach and we took an open weight model
Okay.
and we custom built it, designed our own harness, tied in the new tools that we rebuilt directly into it with all the checks and balances that you would want for a privileged access management tool. Now, you might ask, well, why did you do that? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just use the frontier models? Well, you kind of just have to look at the news. That's what's happened in the last week or so with, was it Hugging Face and OpenAI with that sort of rogue agent, to really get the reasons why you would want to do that. And so what we're doing is really advocating for, not using a frontier model for things like identity management and privileged access management and managing your credentials and making sure that there's a clear and managed separation between what the AI can do and making sure that not only the vendor, as in us, as well as the AI, does not have any access to those credentials through a zero knowledge setup with that.
Okay, that's interesting. So I just want to be super clear because I'm learning all the terms like everybody else is, right? Um, when I think open weight, two things come to mind from my feed. Okay, open weight, the CEO of NVIDIA coming out saying, "Hey, we're just giving you stuff, free of charge. Run
Yes.
with it. Like you can host this on your own and have at it." And then I hear open weight, the China stuff that they're just flooding the market with because it's a fraction of the cost of the big three we talked about earlier. Of course, on one side, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm gonna not pay somebody to run this on their servers. I'm almost going back to full circle, right? Got to put this on my own server somewhere and start to, self-host stuff. And then on the other side, I'm like, I'm not interested in running any of my data through China anything. No offense, but I mean, I
Well, for
just don't
sure.
trust it. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, great point. And obviously, it starts with if you're going to go open weight, well, where are you getting that open weight model from, right? Are you getting it from a North American company, European company, or are you getting it from China, right? So, I would obviously, say that perhaps the latter is the riskier version of that. And then the second thing is, well, what are you doing with that, right? So running an open weight model doesn't mean that you just take it as is and go, okay, well, I'm just running what I could have gotten out of OpenAI or Anthropic, and I'm putting it over here on my own systems, whether I'm hosting it in the cloud or in server or wherever, but more so that you can actually customize it to be context aware for the tools that you want it to be used with. And that's a really important point because the reason why, as I was kind of alluding to before, that a lot of the frontier models can be very expensive is because they have to support doing everything under the sun, from telling you what recipe you should make for dinner to solving cybersecurity problems to doing, XYZ, right? And in order to do that, you have to have all the GPUs and all the parameters behind the scenes, sucking all the energy and ultimately, digging away at all those tokens to be able to do that. So when you take an open weight model, you customize it, you build a harness that is context aware for purpose built for what you're using it for, then it means that it uses less tokens, less GPUs, because you've essentially taken all these billions of parameters and you've reduced it to a more finite subset so that it just means you need less energy, less GPUs to run it. And ultimately, what you can do, which is what we're seeing in the industry, is that from a pricing standpoint, you can move away from having to charge tokens and you can have the services available within your regular, per seat pricing model, right? So rather than saying, well, you're going to have to pay this much per user, per endpoint, et cetera, and then, oh, we'll give you, this many tokens, but then, hey, you go over it, the meter's running, right? You can actually say, well, no, everything's actually included in this, but the only way that makes that possible is actually customizing an open weight model, right?
It's almost like the cell phone company back in the day, right? Before there was unlimited, then they went to, hey, your plan already has so many text messages or so much data, and if you go over, then and then there used to be like a wrinkle to that. Nights and weekends were included, but then and then they went back to unlimited again, right? Like that whole thing. So
Yeah.
it kind of sounds very similar to that.
Well, it does in an overall sense, and I'm old enough to know, like you, right? In the 1990s, when you first got a cell phone, right? They stole from your parents, right? And they were whining at you because you talked to your girlfriend for 3 hours overnight, long distance, and they got the bill back, and it was $1,000, right?
Hmm.
And then they came out with 5G, and well, you only, instead of it was unlimited LTE, and 5G is, well, now you only get 5 gigs because we had to pay all this extra money for 5G, right? So definitely some similarities there, but in a sense, it's just making it so that, like I look at the frontier models as, they are the cutting edge, right? They're the bleeding edge of showing us what is possible, right? But just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it in terms of actually applying something to your business for specific, very, very highly sensitive needs, right?
You know, an important lesson, right? Like we talked about, like current events and the industry a little bit. Now, specific to what you guys are rolling out next month, I take away a I would say this lesson has been over and over again throughout history, but it's like, hey, what is it going to cost me, and what am I getting for that cost, right?
Right.
And I feel like there's a lot of George's words, reckless spending with not clear outcomes, right? Like we're in the toy store playing with everything, but we don't really know we're going to get in the end and what it's going to cost to keep it going.
For sure. I mean, this all goes down to, how you run your business, right? I mean, if you think of all the peer groups that are out there that are advocating for, hey, review your stack every year, make sure that, just like we were talking about before, that, you don't have too many tools, too many vendors, that you're actually, getting the value out of the tools, and those tools are related to the outcomes that you're looking for, right? As a process of becoming more mature, right? But as you all know, for anybody like myself, early on when you started an MSP in your small company, right? You're just, drinking from the fire hose, seeing all these new tools and just thinking, I need everything. And then after you buy a whole bunch of the tools, you're like, well, geez, what do I do with this? Do I have time to implement it, right?
Mm,
And it ultimately comes back to, how are you setting up your business for your business processes, right? Do I need this to run my business? How am I designing the solution I'm delivering to my customers that then ties into these tools that I'm buying, right?
that's fair. So, are you going to take all of the people who are currently on the current Cyberqp model platform and move them immediately next month to the Panther edition, or are they going to have to opt in, or is there a cost difference? Like, I'm just curious. Like, if I'm an existing customer, what am I getting on the other side of this?
Great question. Well, one of the things that we needed to do with this new platform was we had to build it from the ground up
Mm,
because we had to refresh our tech stack. Now, that incorporates a couple of challenges, right? We will have a new platform that is available that will be running in parallel to our current platform.
hmm
We will continue to support the current platform, indefinitely. What we will be doing is we will be doing for the first batch of customers that do want to move over to the new platform that are current partners, we'll be doing like more of a white glove transfer migration over to that. And then ultimately we'll be offering more of a self-serve solution that will allow them to move over when they're ready to do so. But essentially what we've done is we've not only offered the AI part of it, is that all the same tools that we have in the old platform will be available in the new. They're just better and more efficient. So.
Okay. And now, is there is the cost going to be the same if they decide to move, or is there like new pricing scheme?
Well, for as I mentioned before, with in terms of like the tokens and stuff, is that we are not going to be charging tokens for usage on the AI part of it. So there'll be a very similar like per endpoint model that we have in the new system. For any partners that we move over, though, we won't be changing their pricing at all from the current scheme, just to make sure that they're still happy with that. And it's really not about us making more money from current partners. It's about delivering more value to them and
Mm.
also being able to offer a very similar pricing model than we do currently, but just more optimized. So the people that are coming in new that aren't a current partner, we'll have our new endpoint pricing that's there that isn't really that much different than what we currently have. It's just a slight tweak in terms of how we calculate license consumption. We will have the difference is though that we do have both a free tier and a paid tier for all of our licenses, which
Mm.
essentially means that they can add in all the technicians they want. They can add in all the what we call endpoint clients instead of the agents as they want, all the connectors to get in the system, but not until they actually start using the features that are of value do they actually start consuming licenses. So
Mm.
we didn't want to make it so that, the moment you come in the door, boom, you're dinged with, hey, here's an extra bill. It's hey, get in the door, get set up, get to value, and then you start paying for obviously what you're actually getting value out of. So.
Got it. Okay. All right. So we're on when we say next month, there's only one more day left in July, and it'll be August. Um, would it be fair to say by September 1st this will be generally available?
Yes, that is the current schedule is September 1st. We're doing our sort of official launch announcement at Exchange in Washington, D.C. from August the 9th to the 11th. And
Okay.
then we're starting to do demos with new partners that are interested as well as existing in August with the intention to be GA in September.
Awesome. So we're here. We're right at the doorstep. This is great timing. Um, I assume that as you plan what happens after this big flash, right? This new version of the platform, you got some other new functions coming outside of just the AI version of things behind it.
Correct. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with the new platform is have more of a complete PAM solution. So if you've looked at some of the other vendors in the industry, they're just doing elevation or just in time access, right? And so on, as opposed to putting it all together. And so one of the biggest modules that we've added is our new discovery module for both human and non-human identities. So the intention is that all the connectors that you add into our system, it's an ingestion point for all your identities, both human and non-human. And when I say non-human, that's not just your enterprise apps and Entra, but it's also the AI identities that are using service principals in Entra. So the intention of the platform as well is to make it easier to track all the identities that are used by the people, the administrators, as well as the AI identities, which are exponentially growing as we know it, right? And you need a system to be able to not only govern, but know, hey, did somebody just install some, shadow AI that somebody gave global admin privileges to, right? In Entra, do I really want that? Or maybe should I disable it and revoke those permissions? So that's definitely a brand new tool that's available in the new module that is built directly in with our zero knowledge vault. And we still have our just-in-time access, our rotations, our elevation, and our app control as well. So.
Wow. I got to be honest. This is the very first time that somebody's stirring the concept of, like application whitelisting's been out for some time, right? A lot of people have been putting that out there. But like AI whitelisting, that's a whole new flavor.
For sure. And so there's, out of the box, there's, obviously a lot of AI functionality that works with the tools that we have. The intention is also to just um, add in more features to make it easier as we go along to help set up and configure the product as well as an assistant, right? So that was another objective of ours, was just to take that time to value down as much as possible to make it so that you could get set up and ready in minutes instead of perhaps hours, and then continue to leverage the AI module to be able to help you get set up even quicker over time. Not
Yeah.
replacing technicians, but just making them more efficient, right?
No, hey, listen, for all you guys who think that you became software companies overnight, on top of the maintenance and security and all the other things that you heard earlier in this call, pod, there's the how long does it take to get to working? Um,
Right.
it's largely overlooked until you realize how much time's involved to get from zero to the cars running. But that one topic right there, I know that'll become more popular over time. We're starting to see like these, assistants and chatbots and stuff built into tools. But hey, adoption is a huge word, right? And in the software world, it's right next to growth and right next to churn. And it's in the middle of both of those words because if the adoption is poor, it's going to go to churn. And if it's great, it's going to go to growth. So it's right in the middle of that sandwich.
Oh, 100%. I mean, really, at the end of the day, if you don't get the adoption, if you don't have a good product, eventually people will catch on and they'll leave, right?
Mhm.
The worst words in SaaS are CNC, churn and contraction, right? Nobody likes to see those words. But at the end of the day, right, if it doesn't work, then why am I paying for it, right? So
Take that as a lesson, MSP guys and girls out there. If your customer leaves because they had a bad experience, which I don't think we need to even use the word software, but we'll use it in today's world, 2026. But hey, if they had a bad interaction with your human being, or they just were having a bad day and their problem didn't get solved and you caught them at the worst time, that's how you lose customers usually, right? I mean, problem is it's not as easy to replace your customer than to keep them, right? Like that's just generally a rule of business. So take that as a lesson for any business, right? Your goal is to get adoption and you want the experience to be good, which usually leads to better adoption. And the faster you can accomplish that, the better off you usually are.
100%. Wise words.
Yeah, we think we've lived it both as customers and as suppliers, right? I mean, it's just the reality. I always use airlines as an example of that. If it's not fast food, it's airlines. I was in Toronto for a channel event, and it was supposed to be an in and out, right? Come in the morning, do the event, go back home at night. Didn't even book a hotel room, right? Easy flight, direct, hour and a half, easy peasy. Got in, no problem. Awesome. Thanks, Air Canada. Um, but did not get out. Somehow, and I love this, right? They're like, oh, weather. And I'm like, cool. I was like, there were 4 flights scheduled to go from, Toronto to the airport I was coming back to in Northeast here, and three went. Three left and landed, but mine was canceled. I not exactly sure I followed the math there, but okay. So I remember getting to the airport. I'm like, what should I do? Have you ever had this one, Jim? They sent me to the end of the hallway where like you normally drop your bag off and check in to a bank of white telephones, like corded telephones, like you'd find on your kitchen wall from back in the day. And I
Like
had
the
to like
bat phone.
call in to customer service and try and figure out if I could get another flight. Have you ever had this before?
Well, a similar experience. I mean, of course, if you don't regularly fly with the airline, you're not, don't have status, right? They're like, here's the phone, right? That's, and then right next to that is apply for our loyalty program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let me fast forward that story for you. So I ended up booking my own hotel room that I never got comps for, by the way. And then I showed up at the airport the next morning real early, like 5 o'clock early, because I knew I had a long day ahead of me. And as I learned, Air Canada put me on a United flight on the way home, so it wasn't really them operating the return flight, which started to come into picture as to what happened. And so I was bouncing in between the two airlines, and effectively I was had to go to the customer service desk of one, and then the other, and then the one, and then the other, and then finally I got a flight home. So that was the old school non-technology answer. But I'll tell you what, every time I tried to communicate through that, or every time I tried to call in, it did not get me to an answer. I had to actually be in front of a human being. And that's like last month, Jim. This is not 10 years ago. This is
Right.
2026, my friend. So
And
all for all that
each
technology, right?
yeah, each of the apps kept pointing to the other app saying, you got to go to their app to do it. And their app saying, no, you got to do it to that app, right? And so it's just like the automated customer service agent, passing the buck, right?
So the story ended with I ended up because Air Canada that they fly out of there, it's a hub for them, and United only has a couple gates. I had to go to a United gate that was flying to another city and beg the person behind the computer to register to like check me into the flight that was going to a completely different airport because they were a United employee with a United login that could actually go in and fix my reservation in the end. And I was like, man, this is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, well, you're definitely, you have a lot more patience than I do. I would have been like, I'm just booking with somebody else. See you later.
At one point, I was like, should I just rent a car and drive? I mean, we're on the edge of that making sense. All that being said, back to experience and adoption and how does this all fit, with your customer and all that jazz, right? Like one of the things that you said was, hey, for the first bunch of customers that move between the current platform and the new platform, got to be hand holding that process to make sure it's smooth. And then eventually we'll just wizard it, my word, so that you could just self service. Like anything, right? You want to make sure that process is as smooth as possible so that people don't run into a problem. And so, back to my airline experience, it would have been great if Air Canada, who I booked solely through, right? I went to their app, not a third party like Orbitz, right? Like I went to their app, booked on their direct company. Like it would have been nice if they could have just said, "Yep, let's just fix your flight for you so you don't have to bounce around." That would have been the preferred route, but that's not what happened for, so we're not going to have that happen in between your platform migration.
Correct. Definitely not the Air Canada experience. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't, unfortunately, I can't admit that Air Canada doesn't have the highest satisfaction rating.
I personal experience, not surprised. Not surprised at all. I mean, listen, every airline's got to have a problem. I get it. You can't control weather and all that jazz and airport delays, whatever, but how you handle and remediate that, super important, right? That's how you keep people coming back, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going back to Air Canada anytime soon, but hey, back to you want to keep customers happy and you want to keep them on your platform instead of them running away. This is a pretty important process, moving in between versions and stuff. So I'm cautiously optimistic for you because I know this is a big thing, like moving and like you've rebuilt your platform, which is awesome. Hoping that the plan to migrate between platforms is super smooth.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, slow is fast, right?
Very true. I feel like unless you're warp speeding, in the future that we don't exist in yet. So we're gonna see at Exchange where you're gonna announce this and launch this, right? And then I assume you're gonna notify all your existing partners that like, hey, if you weren't there, this is the announcement, right? And hopefully we can help you get that message out with this pod. Um, and then, people can elect, basically raise their hand to say, "Hey, I want to be at the beginning of this line. What show me, right? How do I get on this thing?" And then you did use the word indefinitely, right? So the people who are like, "Nah, I'm not exactly an early adopter guy. I'll let everybody else stand in line." And then like when you force my hand and I got to move, then it'll be pretty smooth at that point. Is that in the cards or what is indefinitely? Is it really indefinitely?
Well, I mean, I use that, I mean, sort of cautiously, but really the intention is that we want to make the experience so smooth that at some point it's just like it's a no-brainer, right? But with any of these types of transitions, I've been in the same situation before where, vendors have come out with, new versions of things and they want you to move over, but maybe it's not as important to you at this point, right? But it's also on us to make it such a, an easy decision for them to do it, that it's that it's a non-issue, right? So I mean, our expectation and hope is that, within the first, year to two, that we'll have everybody over. But really, it's up to us to make sure that the experience is as smooth as possible. So,
I'm right there with you. So, all right, let's cut this back into twofold. If I'm a person that's not a Cyberqp customer partner, whatever the right word is, I assume they go to cyberqp.com and that's where they're going to learn all about 2.0, the new AI version of everything. If they're, I'm putting it out there, you'll correct me. If I'm an existing customer partner, where do I raise my hand to ask to be put into the line for the new thing?
well, good question. So we do have a new email domain, cyberqp.ai, which you can either get to by going directly to the website, or going to cyberqp.com. There'll be a banner there. We will be redirecting people in the near future as well, so not a huge issue there. We have already reached out to all of our existing partners to give them a heads up and let them know what's happening. But essentially, it's all driven through our partner success team, right? So all of our partners have a partner success team member assigned. They can either reach out directly to their partner or sales directly or via our website to sign up for the waiting list.
Okay. So we're going to go the opt in. Put me at the front of the line. I want to try the new stuff. I'm usually that guy, by the way. I'm just all right, awesome. Well, this is really exciting. If you're not already headed to exchange and you happen to be in the Northeast here, I think it's in National
DC.
Harbor. Yeah, like DC, Baltimore area. Maybe you go check that out. But I'm sure you'll be, putting it all the feeds, right? Like, hey, big announcement, billboard, check it out. New thing here. So I'm looking forward to it. Uh, Panther. I like Panther. Yeah, yeah, they launched Panther. That's just me. Um, Jim, anything else that's coming up that you're excited for? I know we're on the back end of the year, and I know that the MSP calendar has really almost inverted for some reason, right? Used to be very backloaded, middle Q3, end of Q4. Now it feels like it was front loaded, probably because DattoCon got merged into the Kaseya Global and a
Yeah.
bunch of other things. So, anything on the back end of the year you're excited for?
Yeah, I mean we'll definitely be at IT Nation as well, but our main focus is, the launch that we're doing and then also adding in as many integrations and connectors as we can, because our objective there is to, accelerate that development and have as many fast follows as possible. As you know, you have to kind of draw a line to get things out the door,
Mm.
but it's the continued push to add as many integrations after that as possible to make it so that everybody's got what they need in the system.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, I'm sure you had that in mind when you baked the new thing. So I assume that you're going to go pretty fast, once you're past this, major, announcement launch, right? Like you're probably, gearing up for some rapid integration work. So that'll be exciting. I'll be looking, keep my eye on the feed, right? As I start seeing new logos coming out there for you. Everyone, this was now. Listen, CyberQP has been in the space for some time. I think you've seen them probably everywhere at some point. Looking for cyberqp.ai, new domain. So now you've heard it, and these guys are going to be at some of the events coming up here around the corner. Check it out. I'm sure it's worth looking at, if nothing other than, hey, everybody wants to know what's available, right? And probably trust somebody to know their lane than trying to build everything on your own. Still don't think that's the right move, but my personal opinion, I digress. Jim, appreciate you, my friend. Be careful on that Air Canada, man. I don't know. I hope you don't have the same problem I did, but they may, and definitely don't want to be confused for me. I always get stopped at security, so I hope you don't get that. For everyone else, this session was recorded. I'm sure you're listening to it already. This is on mspinitiative.com and all the podcatchers, YouTube, and all that good stuff. Looking forward to running into you guys in person. Check out Channel Sports Tour, which will be online here on the website. And if not, see you at an event around the corner. Jim, I'll grab a beer with you when I see you next, buddy.
All right, man. Great to see you, George.
You got it. Have a good one.
Talk to you later.